Hello, my name is Dan Jones and I am host of The Dan Jones Show, and today I'm going to be unboxing and doing a little review of the DJI Ryze Tello. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Ryze Tello, it is DJI's cheapest drone, actually. Powered by DJI, designed by Ryze, R-Y-Z-E, and I'll put some links in the description down below. This little quadcopter is probably one of the, well, it is the cheapest drone that DJI has anything to do with. For around $100, or recently on sale for about $90, you can get this drone, and honestly, just from what I know about it and my experience with it, you can learn to fly DJI drones without breaking the bank. Now, let's dive right into this unboxing, and while we're doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about my history with the Ryze Tello. Now, this is not my first Ryze Tello. In fact, this is my second one. The first one I owned was one of the Fly More bundles that DJI was selling at Best Buy, and at the, well, just, I don't want to tell a very long story, but long story short, it didn't work out. I had some issues with the brushed motors, and that is probably this thing's biggest weakness. Now, unboxing was pretty simple. You've got your battery, you've got your little charging cable, you've got the book, you've got extra props, and of course, some candy. So we're gonna set that aside. Now, the first thing I can tell you, first, or technically second impressions, is it's very, very, very light. And honestly, it has that DJI white look to it, what would you call it, ivory white. And it's got that similarities from like the Phantom and the Mavic Air and the Spark that are all white. And you can actually replace that lid with different colors if you so desire. Right on the front, you've got a 5 megapixel 720p camera. Brushed motors, 4 of them, and I believe they're coreless brushed motors, so that makes them just slightly less sucky than regular brushed motors. And then of course you got the prop guards, and this is where you would go ahead and insert the battery. Now, one of the coolest things about this quad is that you don't need to have a controller. You can actually use your phone, and there's an app you can download that allows you to control this over Wi-Fi, which is pretty cool. It's very, very easy to set up. Now, the first one I had, one of the motors just stopped working all of a sudden, and I had probably gone through maybe 12 batteries out of the, charge the 3, run the 3, a couple days later do the same thing again, and by about the fourth time I got it out there, it just, one of the motors seized up. So I actually, that was within about 2 weeks of owning it, so I was able to take it back to Best Buy and get my money back. Now, this was a gift from my significant other, who said that she wants to actually learn how to use Scratch, which is a programming language, sort of. And she wants to actually program the quad to do stuff, which is something you can do with the Ryze Tello. One of the coolest things you can do with the Ryze Tello is not break the bank and still learn how to fly a DJI product. For example, it has a single button takeoff. You press the button, it takes off. It hovers in place. There's these awesome little infrared sensors right on the bottom that hold this thing in place, something that is, well, unheard of in this price point at this time. So this thing just sits there, just like a Mavic Air or a Spark would. Just sits there. Captures the video and the pictures, sends them right to your phone, so that's pretty slick. So you don't have an SD card or anything you have to remember, you just have your phone. It takes pictures and video and puts them right on your phone, stores them via Wi-Fi.
This is Dan from the future. There is something you need to understand about that. You do not capture what the Tello camera actually sees, you capture what is transmitted from the Tello to your phone via Wi-Fi. So if your Wi-Fi connection is weak due to interference or distance, you will capture blocky and choppy video.
It's got some pretty good flying chops. It's a good indoor flyer as well as a decent outdoor flyer. Just be very, very careful if it is a little windy. You get about 10 minutes of flight time with that single battery. You can charge it up off of any cell phone charging hub, so you can just plug it right into your cell phone charger, plug the cable right into the side of the drone, it charges the battery right up, and you're up and flying. Very easy to learn. The app is very easy to use. Here are some drawbacks though. It has a very small range, as it is a Wi-Fi exclusive drone, meaning that it uses a wireless connection between here and your phone to communicate. So it doesn't go very far, but honestly, if you're learning to fly, that's probably a good thing. You want it to be really close to you. You're obviously gonna wanna maintain line of sight, but that's not gonna be a problem because this thing maybe gets 25, 30 meters away from you before you really start having issues with it, at least in my experience. The other thing that isn't so great is, of course, the brushed motors, not brushless motors, brushed motors. There's a big difference, mostly in longevity. Brushless motors tend to be more powerful and last a lot longer, as there's not as much friction and decay happening internally. Now, these are supposedly some decent brushed motors, and I can say from my own experience, when it worked, it was great. Now, I had read online through a series of forums that these are rated for about 30 to 40 hours, which means realistically you can expect to get about 25 to maybe 30 hours out of them. One thing I can definitely recommend, and with the single battery won't be a problem, is when you're done flying, let it sit and cool. If these motors get hot and you keep throwing batteries at it one right after the other without any break in between, you're gonna burn up the motors quicker. And that's what I'm thinking led to the demise of my first Tello, is I was one battery after the other, just flying them back to back, charging them up. A couple days later, do the exact same thing. And I got, like I said, about 4 sessions out of it before it finally just quit. I'd hang on to this little cardboard container, as this is a great way to just kind of stash it. If you can figure out how to get it back in. Yeah, let's see if I can. I might be too stupid for this. Maybe I have to take the battery out. There it is. See, I am kind of an idiot, but you can actually use this to transport the drone. That's what I did in the past. So you can throw your little charging cable back in there, your battery in there, and call it a day. I'm gonna show you the app, and I'm gonna show you a lot of the really, really cool things you can do with this quad. All right, so we got the drone placed. I'm gonna go ahead and start flying. Now, like all DJI drones, you can take off just by pulling the sticks down and out. You don't have to use the takeoff feature, but you can. So I'm gonna go ahead and fly it towards me. Now, you gotta remember, this is definitely better indoors as far as the flight controllability goes. Any little bit of wind is gonna push this thing around. See, if I move this around, it's not that heavy. It doesn't have GPS on it, so it's not gonna really hold its same exact position, but with the obstacle flow or the optical flow system on the bottom, the little infrared sensors that are below it, that keeps it level, and it makes it very easy to fly. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and increase the speed. I'm gonna go into the settings, hit fast mode, and now you're gonna see this thing jet down the field with a little bit more speed. It says about 22 feet per second. And I'm now getting the Wi-Fi weak signal. So the Wi-Fi signal is something to be aware of. As you can see outside, it's very good at flying. It's just that if there's wind, it's not the best flyer. I do recommend that once you get used to flying it, that you keep it in fast mode, especially if you're flying it outdoors. Indoors, keep it in slow mode unless you got a lot of space. But outside, you definitely want the extra punch, although that will wear down on your battery a little quicker. So let's take a look at some of the flight modes. First flight mode I like to deal with is circle. Circle is really slick because it's sort of like point of interest mode on the other DJI drones, except this one just goes in a circle. There's really no point of interest. As you can see, it's just flying automatically in a circle. Now, the one thing to, of course, be aware of here is what is inside of that circle and how big of a circle does it make, because it does not have any obstacle avoidance on it, of course. It will just fly right into you. So it flew its circle, it stopped recording, and now we're on to the next thing. Bounce mode. Bounce mode is exactly what it sounds like. The drone just bounces and allows you to pilot it. Up and away will record a short video while flying upward and backward. It just goes up and back, very similar to droney in the Mavic Air and the Mavic 2 Pro. And it'll just stay there. So you got to pilot it back. Like I said, it's kind of a nice introduction to some of those flight modes that you get with other DJI drones. Let's take a look at 8D flips. Now 8D flips are 8 directional flips. You can actually draw on the screen how you want the quad to flip, and it will flip. For brushed motors, this thing's got some decent power behind it. So these flips handle pretty well, but they do run the battery down pretty quickly. All right, 360 mode. 360 is sort of like point of interest, but the drone stays right where it is and it just circles itself around 360 degrees. And that's what it's doing right now. All right, so we got a little bit of battery left. What we're gonna do now is I'm just gonna fly around the field at full speed and get you some video and go from there. Very similar to the other DJI drones. While it doesn't have obstacle avoidance, it does have brakes where it will stop by changing your pitch and attitude a little bit in order for the drone to come to a stop. It will tilt up to stop, and if going backwards, it will tilt forward, which is a very nice feature to have. Now we're gonna go ahead and land the Tello, and we're gonna see how well it hand lands. So I'm gonna click on hand landing. Oh, it says high wind velocity, cannot enter this mode. So it knows, okay, I'm getting tossed around a little too much. It's probably not the safest way to land. So I'm just gonna hit tap to land. And now it's landing. And that's it. So I just got back, well, not really. After a couple of days spent flying this thing outside again, I've come to the realization that it is a $100 quadcopter. Now, here's the good. It does fly very easily if you have very good lighting. You have to be outside for this. They say this is an indoor flyer. Well, I don't know if they say it is, but a lot of drone flyers will say this is a good indoor flyer. It depends. You got to have good indoor lighting for these little bottom sensors and for them to work. They don't work without good lighting. It's infrared. So this optical flow, I believe they call it, it balances the quad. It keeps it so level, very easy to fly for a beginner. So in that regard, good indoor lighting and good outdoor lighting with very little wind, you're going to have a good time. This is a fun quad to fly. You get a good 10 minutes of flight time with the single battery. And, you know, in that regard, if you're training up to be using a Mavic Air, a DJI Mavic 2 Pro, whatever the case may be, this may be a good place for you to start. I do recommend it for that. Now, the bad. I took the prop guards off. I don't know if you noticed that. And one of the reasons I did that is that outside, the slightest breeze pushes this little guy around. And to make it a little more aerodynamic, and also I think it just looks cooler, it really does speak to the size of this thing, I took the prop guards off outside. Inside, I recommend all day long you leave the prop guards on. It's not the most stable flyer sometimes. This particular one, I just did a firmware update on before flying it for the second time. The first time I flew it, it was a little bit erratic. It spun around in a circle very quickly for no apparent reason when I went to land it. I initially saw the low battery warning. The battery indicator went yellow and it said land as soon as possible. I said, okay. I landed it, and unfortunately I didn't get this on film, but the quad spun around in a 360 degree uncontrollable spin, and then it stopped and it stabilized and then it did it again. So I landed it and I thought that was weird. So there's maybe a firmware update fix that, we'll see. I'll report down in the comments if anything changes. It takes a couple hours to charge up the battery. But it's very easy to charge. You just plug it into any USB charger on the side, stick the battery in, and you're good to go. Now, I think it took me about, I want to say 2 hours to charge it up fully. and you get about 10 minutes of flight time. So with that said, do I recommend that you buy one if you are planning on buying a better DJI style quad? Then absolutely. The picture quality isn't great. It's not terrible. The video quality is not good at all. It's not good. 720p direct to your phone, which is nice. It's not very good. The flight controls are a little shaky in the sense that you are using a touchscreen phone. You can get a Bluetooth controller for it. That does help a little bit from my understanding. But either way, it's twitchy. It's not perfect. It's not a Spark. It's not an Air. It's not a 2 Pro. So keep that in mind. But if you're learning, hey, I want to get into camera drones, I want to learn how to fly a camera drone, specifically one with the DJI mindset, or even a Parrot or an Autel Evo, this I think would be a really great place to start. So with that said, I do thank you for watching. Please click that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. Check out my Instagram in the comment section, or in the description down below. Leave a comment in the comment section down below, and I'm going to list everything down there in the description for where to buy one of these. This one came directly from DJI during a summer sale. 90 bucks. I think that's a pretty good price for this. Thank you for watching. My name is Dan Jones, and this has been the review of the Ryze DJI Tello.